No, it's the pupil referral unit.
Until another place becomes available?
No, that's it. End of the line.
Still a school, though, eh?
Well, that's debatable. Probably got bare knuckle fighting for PE and shank making for DT.
It can't be that bad.
I bet it is. I don't really want him in a room full of other problem kids. It's going to be like loads of bad eggs in one basket. Like an ASBO Omelette.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
Hello and welcome to episode 206 of The Talk of the Street, an unofficial Coronation Street catch-up podcast that can't quite remember how we're supposed to do this. I'm Gavin.
Y mi llama es Ellen.
Buenas noches.
Mucho gusto.
Blah, 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 blah. The Talk of the Street. Blah, 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 blah.
I've been watching an awful lot of Spanish cinema. And some of it I have to watch without subtitles. So I finally broke down and got Duolingo and have been brushing up on my Spanish while you've been sick.
Right.
It's one of the many things I've been occupying my time with while you've been down for the count.
Yeah, that's been absolutely noticeable there.
See.
Right. We're back.
Yes.
Money Funsters after what I think has been like one of the sickest times of my life.
Yeah. No. It was terrifying. It was terrifying seeing you in that bed just kind of near death.
I don't know if... I don't think I was close to death, but...
You were sicker than I've ever seen you.
Yeah.
And you were asleep most of the time.
I had chicken pox when I was 29, and I think it's kind of well established that when you get chicken pox later in life, it's... I don't know if it's serious, but it really hits you, and it really hit me. And it hit me during one of the Gulf Wars that was on the news 24/7. So I was kind of sitting up watching TV in this fugged state, watching Baghdad getting destroyed, which was a really, really strange state of mind to end up being in. This wasn't like that, but it was kind of worse. It was like I was lying in bed, desperate for a drink. I can see a glass that's 2 feet away from my head, and I don't have the energy to reach out and get it.
Yeah. And there's so little I can do to help you.
Yep.
I can't touch you. I have not touched you in over a week.
I've barely seen you.
Yeah. I've been sleeping in Benny's room in the bottom bunk. Well, you've been upstairs. It's the most distressing way to get sick, I think, is something where the people who love you can just do the bare minimum to try and help you.
Yeah.
It just makes it more distressing for everybody.
And I think of when Stella had it, and she wasn't
wasn't sick at all, yeah.
Right? She was quite happy. She was in her room for like a week and a half or whatever. She said to me, if I do this for the rest of my life, I'd be quite happy about it.
She was the same with lockdown, though, too.
Yeah, but
But you were actually sick, whereas she was not when she had it.
yeah, proper sick.
Proper sick.
That was no fun.
And,
but anyway,
and you're still not 100%.
no, the most I've spoken in the last sort of 2 weeks, 10 days or whatever is, I did a demo at work. I went into work, I logged into work on Tuesday to do this demo, and I talked for 15 minutes, and I needed to go to sleep for 2 hours after it.
Right.
So if I fall asleep in the middle of this,
We'll
know
see
why.
how this goes. And we are both masked up.
I think people
in
can
this
tell.
room.
You can sound it through my headphones. I don't know if I do, but
You don't
do.
sound it at all. I've got a K95 on, though, and you've just got the regular surgical mask. So.
Right. Oh well.
Oh well.
We better preamble, my dear, because we've got a shit ton to get through.
We do, because I watched it all last night.
I can't. No, I love Coronation Street, and even I think would struggle to watch 2 weeks worth of Coronation Street
in one night.
evening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good for you.
And then I watched the new Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers movie.
Oh,
so.
a veritable ginger swab of the mind.
It was actually quite good. But anyway.
Lovely stuff.
Yes.
Give us some of that pandemic Corrie news.
Chesney becomes an uncle. Joseph Aston, brother of
A chunkle?
An uncle.
A chunkle.
Joseph Aston, brother of Sam Aston, and no stranger to the cobbles himself, welcomed daughter Roxanne this week. This makes 2 bebes in 1 month for the Aston family because Sam's wife just had a bebe earlier this month.
Wow.
Lots of bebes. Lots of Aston bebes. The week of May 30th, Corrie will get a brief time change, moving back to 7:30 to make room for Britain's Got Talent semi-finals.
God.
Ooh, semi-final week. Are you excited?
For Britain's Got Talent? No, not at all. I wasn't aware that people were still watching that.
Did you know there was like an Americanized version of Eurovision on
I did.
America?
Yeah.
And
I can't imagine that was very good.
It flopped horribly
You don't say.
because America just can't do camp. We just can't. We're just not gay enough.
Well,
which is
the Eurovision
sad.
has built on this over 6 decades.
Right, yeah.
It's not something you can just start by saying we're going to create this wonderfully camp phenomenon
Right.
and expect people to pick up and run with it. This has been carefully built and nuanced and changed over years and decades of winners after winners after winners. So to expect that magic to just be in a bottle for, what was it, like a kind of state
Right.
vision thing?
Right.
Yeah,
and
that's gonna
even
take
that,
some doing.
apparently with a lot of folk music and country and western. Although a K-pop group was the winner. So all is right with the world.
Eurovision was good this year. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
However, I was delirious at the time, so.
Huzzah, Ukraine. I guess this means that Ukraine must continue to be a country, at least until next year's Eurovision. So
Well, it's kind of cruel
back
because
the fuck off, Russia.
it makes them need to. They need to host it.
Right. Yeah, so they need to continue to be a country.
UK did very well.
They did.
They had a good song. There was lots of good songs. There was.
It feels like everybody kind of conspired behind UK's back and said, all right, okay, we're all fed up with hosting this thing. Let's make UK host it. And then that backfired
Oh yeah,
with Ukraine winning.
yeah, with the public vote because the UK were winning at the end of the judges' vote.
Right.
It was good. Did you watch it?
I've seen bits of it
That's all you need.
because I was watching something else at the time. Probably another Pedro Almodovar movie. And finally, speaking of talent, Corrie is losing a major one as Melanie Hill is quitting the soap after 7 years of playing our Kathy.
Sad.
Very sad. In light of the COVID pandemic, Melanie has decided now is the time to focus on her family, and we wish her all the best.
Who's going to knock random people down in the street now?
Gail.
Well, I guess.
Yeah, she had to rush up and take care of her 88-year-old mother the other week, and she's like, if I was still on the show, I wouldn't be able to do things like that.
Right.
Because the soap just kind of sucks in your entire life and you're on this rigid thing. So instead she'll take on projects and not be irregular on anything. Although it does sound like there will be an open door in case she ever wants to come back. And that's good.
Yeah,
Because Alex and Brian will still be on the show.
Kathy's story trajectory hasn't been very much over the last few years, which she had her trolling thing.
Right. Which wasn't
And then-
great.
And that led her to move in with Yasmin, wasn't
Right.
it? And then
And then
that's
she
really
started
been about it.
hoarding again.
Yeah, I think she could probably have been one of those characters that just crops up every month or so for a couple of scenes, doesn't really do anything and just
Right.
goes through the motions. But
Which is a total waste of her talent.
absolutely.
Yes. So we wish her all the best.
Yes, we do. And now we will podcast for coffee. We're drinking our well. I'm drinking my own coffee. You're not drinking coffee. I'm
Yeah,
drinking coffee.
I'm wearing a mask.
Yeah, I intend to sip through this mask. Oh, I did the hanger reflex this morning. You tried it yet?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You take a clothes hanger
Uh-huh.
and you stretch it and you put it on your head. And
Why?
And you will involuntarily turn your head. And it's a thing. And it's true. And because you know about it, you manage to stop yourself, but you feel your head wanting to turn.
That's very weird.
It's all over TikTok. I say I'm down with the kids. Anyway, we're on our own coffees this week. If you think this podcast is worth any more than the time it takes to consume, you can buy us next week's coffee by going to ko-fi.com. That's ko-fi.com/the talk of the street. If you don't want to do that, why not just leave us a rating and a review on the podcast provider of your choice? Both would be equally welcome.
But please, buy us coffee.
But buy us coffee.
Because Gal's been sick. Gal's been sick, and I've been
So
having
very
to
sick.
do all the grocery shopping and taking care of the household and stuff while he's been down for the count. So we could use a little extra coffee money.
You're begging for coffee?
I'm begging for coffee.
Oh, why not?
Why not?
And now Helen's favourite section. It's YouTube's. This is a section where we talk about what's new on our YouTube channel. We are through 800 subscribers this week. So
Nice.
we're getting tantalisingly close. My target for 1,000 subscribers by the end of the month and 500,000 views by the end of the month is looking a little optimistic. I think we'll be close, but we won't be quite there. So what's new on the channel? The regular stuff. There's last week's podcast. There's last night's Corrie in under 4 minutes, which was very useful this morning. So I was trying to catch up with Corrie from 2 weeks ago. And my 3 favourite clips from this week's episodes is another Corrie life story. This is on Samir Rashid, the Moroccan waiter, Mrs. Deirdre, and Tracy's walking kidney donor. These are low effort for me to do.
Right.
Because it's 2 scenes, their first scene and their last scene thrown
Right.
together. So that's why these are a thing.
Right.
If that tickles your fancy, head over to youtube.com/the Talk of Street podcast, smash that subscribe button and harvest the vital organs involuntarily of that notification bell. And now, this.
Welcome.
Welcome to Last Year Tonight with me, John Oliver. Just enough time to quickly talk about lamb chunks.
Lamb chunks. I have a vague memory of this, but I can't place it.
That's right, this was astonishing work from Ronnie, chatting to Jenny and making the phrase being elbow deep in lamb chunks absolutely dripping in sexual innuendo.
Yes, now I remember. How could I forget?
Lamb chunks.
Wow.
And I think he was wearing that shirt that he was wearing this week, where he had the top like 7 or 8 buttons undone.
Yeah, and you can see his forearms.
I was Gavin, and you were pleased to announce that you'd been cast in Knives Out 2.
Because at the time, everyone was being cast in Knives Out 2. Knives Out 2 was last year's Greta Gerwig's Barbie, or the Oppenheimer movie, which is where everybody is cast this year.
We were very briefly excited about the zombie movie Army of the Dead until we actually watched it.
It was so bad.
And we were at the Mayor of Easttown stage of the pandemic. We'd been to a virtual Rio Town poetry reading where I had to start like 3 times because the video feed kept on dropping. And you were initially doing it from a parking lot. Yep. And you'd been in the newspaper where you told lies about me.
I did not such thing.
Yep.
I told truths about you, and then the writer decided to alter things for some reason.
Daisy's like a bloodhound when she realises there's been chemistry going on in the Rovers that no one's told her about. Homeless Carol makes a shock return and is quickly established as a pawn in Sean's pyramid scheme shenanigans. Natasha had about as much of the sinkhole as she's prepared to take and offers to fix it, where the residents of number 8 behave like they were waiting for her to do so. Asha reveals a cunning plan to get ITV Corrie to admit to the role that he played in Seb's murder. Tyrone and Alina plan to buy a flat they spend half a week complaining about as Hope and Ruby go shoeless. Kathy has taken to collecting old pizza boxes, while Tim's mum worries that all the hot flushes in the house could heat the entire street. Steve falls off his bike and his face lands in a bucket of grease. Sharon's blatant attempts at espionage continue to go unnoticed, while Sam does his best to kidnap himself as Gail wraps herself in seaweed. Dev Febrezes himself. Ronnie's shirt buttons don't work, and Addie's controller is hidden with the luxury crisps. Our moment of the week was Audrey pished on the couch talking about the 60s to Sam, and our boring moment of the week was Harvey explaining what tags are to Sharon.
It's hilarious that last year at this time, Gail was wrapped in seaweed when this year she's confused about the concept of Sally getting wrapped in seaweed.
Yeah, she's forgotten all about that somehow. Isn't that strange, Helen?
It is strange.
It's almost like
Consistency is not an issue here in this soap opera.
it's almost like we're the only people that watch this fucking show. And that was Coronation Street and the talk of the street. This time last year, shall we dive in, my dear?
I don't know how you feeling.
Yeah, I feel like it's been an effort.
All right, well, let's try to get through some of this at least. Yes, please.
That's the answer. So will we recap briefly what happened the week that we missed?
Sure. I watched all of it last night, so it's all 1 week to me.
Okay, so feel free to chime in then. Summer knocked back Addie to go on a date with Aaron, but ended up breaking up with him when she tells him about his eating disorder, and he seems to be very cagey about this. He seems to have an eating disorder of his own that nobody's talking about.
Or he had someone very close to him from the group that had an eating disorder and died, and he doesn't want to go through that again. So he's like, let's keep our friendship just to the group, because he's trying to save himself that heartbreak again. That's what I think.
Option 2. Addie wonders why Summer judges her worth against her schoolwork, which I think was probably my moment of the week last week. I thought that was a great little scene.
It was very good.
The Undertaker's still snoring. Mary's lightsaber noises, and the Undertaker saying, "I am your father" to Eileen, which made her throw up in her mouth a little bit.
Right, yeah. Of all of the Darth Vader things he could have said to her, that was the least appropriate.
He could have said, "Bring her to me."
Right, yes. Or the Force
or
is
something
strong
that he
with
actually
this
said,
one. Yeah.
Jacob got a job in sales.
Woohoo! Because he's very good at selling things.
Yeah, that was
He was
Kirk's storyline, remember?
He's a very good. Yes, and Kirk gets to go back to packing, which is a relief for him.
Total reset for the Kirk storyline. Abby gained evidence that Ben was on the muck as well.
Yes.
And blackmails him to turn on Imran.
Yes.
Gail admits to paying Abby's legal fees, and Toy and Imran arrange a naming ceremony for Alfie. I thought that Ben's outing as being a drug user was
Right.
super contrived.
Very much so.
He comes out of the lawyer's office. He's straight on the phone on a street where he has been surveying somebody.
Right.
He's straight on the phone,
And
audibly.
and
saying-
Abby just happens to be there.
Right. He says the time and place of the drug deal, and Abby's basically standing in the middle of the street filming it, and nobody notices.
Right, yeah.
It's just
Hilarious. Have you ever been to a naming ceremony?
no, I don't think I've ever been to a christening either.
I've been to a christening. Never been to a naming ceremony.
It didn't feel like it's a thing.
It did feel very contrived. I've heard of it, but
Well, we'll get to the specifics of the naming ceremony in
Right.
this week's show, which
Yeah.
there is plenty to talk about.
yes, there is.
Peter discovered from a whistle-blowing Aggie that Mr. Thorne gambled on his operation, and also somehow, because that wasn't shocking enough, if you think that's shocking, that wasn't shocking enough, so they had to up the ante a bit by having him be this kind of Hannibal Lecter character where he was taking selfies whilst holding
The dodgy
Peter's engorged liver.
The dodgy liver, yeah. Yeah, because that's hygienic to bring your phone, which you also take to the bathroom, into a hygienic, pristine area like a surgery.
Yeah. And
And does not seem to think there's anything wrong with that. That's the thing that shocks me so much, is that...
it's the number of people that are in that room
Right.
as that operation is happening. And presumably he's done this before,
Right.
but none of them seem to care. Okay.
Right. Or everybody's too afraid of losing their job to say anything.
Somebody punching somebody else last week happened when Peter punched Thorne, but he gets out of the charges being pressed by dropping his complaint against Thorne on the understanding that Thorne retires. But
Which is dumb because it wasn't Peter's complaint to begin with. It was Aggie's whistleblowing. Peter only found out about it after the investigation had already started. So Peter saying, I don't want this investigated, should have no standing on the investigation.
Right. Thorne announces he's off for a job in Philadelphia, of all places.
Good luck to him there.
So Peter decides to gather some evidence, yes. He's living on the block with the Fresh Prince, apparently. Tyrone still loves Fizz.
Duh.
Shock. And Tim lies and tells Sally that he's been to the doctor.
Duh.
And that's pretty much what happened two
Last
weeks
week.
ago, right?
Yeah.
All right, so jumping into this week then, with our first storyline this morning is the lame-o ceremony. I wrote most of these titles whilst...
Delirious.
Delirious, yes. I thought it was naming, name-o, lame-o, yeah, that works. And then you look at it in the cold light of day and you think, maybe not so much. On Monday, everyone's getting ready for the naming ceremony thing except Imran, who has to remind everyone that he needs to quickly nip into the office first. Imran quickly nipping into the office first is rarely a good sign.
No.
Meanwhile, at Nina's Rolls, Abby's getting ready for the meeting with the lawyers and with Imran. Kev is there for company and offers to be there for moral support, but Abby would rather do without, can't say I blame her, and show Imran the size of her literal balls.
Right. Correct. Kev was kind of a dick about that whole thing too.
No.
He's like, you want me to be there? ... as a mate.
Right?
It's like, don't take this as I want to reconcile our marriage.
Yeah, and I definitely don't want to shag you at this meeting.
No.
I'll just be there as a mate.
Yeah.
Elliot.
Fucking Kev.
Abby!
Oh boy!
I can still do that, thank goodness.
Oh yes.
Elliot and Abby turn up at Imran's office. Ben is already there that no one seems to mention anything about. Imran is in a rush to get on, but because Abby is a cow and she knows that the naming ceremony thing's happening, she decides that this will take as long as it's going to take and asks for some coffee. So Imran takes time to feed and water everyone. Elliot reveals the purpose of the meeting. He has evidence that Imran lied to the court about Abby buying drugs. What evidence is this, asks Imran. Him, shouts Abby, pointing at Ben. No English, says Ben, and he claims to have no idea what the fuck
No
Abby's...
habla inglés.
There we go. What the fuck Abby is jabbering on about. Abby threatens to kill Ben as Imran yawns and announces that he's bored of all this now, and Elliot drags Abby away. No one drank their coffee. Once everyone's gone, Ben pipes up. Well, that was fun, he says. Oh, shut up, Ben, says Imran. And I really hope that, oh, shut up, Ben, becomes a thing. Back at Nina's Rolls, Abby explains to Elliot that she threatened Ben by taking pics to the cops and that he's boss. So blackmail and witness intimidation then, says Elliot. Yeah, I don't think this is going to fly.
No.
Sounds bad when you put it like that, says Abby. This shit is over, says Elliot. Meanwhile, Leanne meets Imran and Toy ahead of the naming ceremony thing, and the three of them head off. Meanwhile, Abby wants to rip Ben's kidneys out of his cock end. Wait till your boss hears about you being back on the muck, says Abby. He already knows, says Ben, and he reveals that his new boss is Imran.
Yeah. That's convenient.
Nothing personal, he says.
Meanwhile, Adam and Ben complaining about the fact that because of his picadillos and Imran's picadillos, they haven't had very much income coming in. And then they're going to hire a new guy.
Yeah. They're hemorrhaging money.
Right.
They can't get any clients, and they're going to pay this dodgy paralegal now.
Right.
Who has already gone from being this super investigative guy
Right.
to being this
Druggy.
kind of shitty druggy guy now who's just desperate for a job.
Right.
Poor Ben.
Not really.
No. At the naming ceremony, Toy explains to Kelly and the audience what a naming ceremony is. It's all ready to start when Abby shows up. Change of plan, she says. Room for a small one. And Toya is thrilled, and the deliberate lameness factor of the ceremony is really played on here as we learn that Leanne is going to read a poem and Kelly's going to light a candle.
Right. Yeah.
Just a traditional naming ceremony then.
Right. Yeah. Where we read a poem and
Who
light
lit a candle at your naming ceremony?
I didn't have one.
No.
I didn't have a christening either, though. So
I think I had a christening. I think I did.
that's interesting.
I think I did.
I figured that was more of a Catholic thing.
And you know what? There's nobody to ask. So Imran politely takes her to one side and asks her what the fuck she's playing at. Abby insists that she's playing fair. She finally knows she hasn't liked to stand on here, and she officially offers another truce. She just wants to be here for Alfie's big day. Imran accepts her unconditional surrender, and for the rest of the ceremony, Abby becomes my mum on the phone to people that she doesn't know by talking very politely to people. So the laming ceremony gets underway, and we learn that
said
Leanne
laming.
and Kelly, yes I did, Leanne and Kelly are to be Alfie's life mentors.
Right. Instead of godparents. Right, because we're trying to be very, very...
Secular.
Yes.
Is that the right term? Secular? I think so.
I think so, yeah. Yeah. It's just
So-
cutting everything out, you
so-
know. Right? Not, and I know... I mean, Imran is still technically Muslim, isn't he? He's not practicing. You know, he had that talk with the dad about
Eid.
yeah. So...
And he was very quick to knock that back.
Right.
Even the merest
yeah.
suggestion that he was going to go to evening prayers.
It smacks a little bit of Daniel and Sinead's first wedding, which was not a legal wedding, where Kirk married them under a tree. Remember that?
Phil's dressed as Batman. Yeah.
That's what this feels like. It feels like something just kind of cobbled together to not offend anyone.
Yeah. But we're going to have a poem.
Right. And we're going to light a
There
candle.
will be a lit candle at some point.
Right.
So if that triggers you in any way, then you can remove
right.
yourself.
Yeah.
Leanne and Kelly as life mentors. Let's examine that just for a second. Former prostitute Leanne and recent drug dealer Leanne to be life mentor number one.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly, who was involved in the murder of Seb just a year
Alfie's
ago,
brother.
is life mentor number two.
Right. And former drug user and homeless person.
Yeah.
Kelly.
This is all fine, right?
Daughter of
Loan shark,
criminal
right?
Rick the Chin.
Probable murderer.
Yeah.
Probable.
Yeah. Once or twice.
Yeah. So as the ceremony goes on, Abby looks jealously at the baby in Toya's lap.
Right. Give the baby to Abby while you're
She's
sitting
there, right? She's there.
She's showed up. Give her the baby during the ceremony. It's like Toya has been so concerned with how all of this looks and how it looks like she's this baby snatcher.
Mm-hmm.
And yet she doesn't think, oh, Abby's here. I should let her hold the baby during this ceremony.
Not even the baby. Her baby.
Right. Her baby.
Right.
This baby is sleeping soundly
Yep.
during his naming ceremony.
Because he's been fed with gin.
Drink gin! And also because naming ceremonies are lame.
Yeah.
Or at least this one is.
After the ceremony, Abby asks to take a photo of Alfie as a keepsake, and Toya, who can't fall for this quick enough, grants her approval and allows Abby to take her special photo of Abby in his cot, not even picking him up, not even
Alfie.
touching him. What did I say?
Abby. Abby's not sleeping in the cot. She's a wee bit too big.
Imran is suspicious, but Abby reminds him of the terms of her truce, and he apologises while she looks cocky. She asks how his new paralegal is working out. When Imran looks like he doesn't think this sounds like something someone who has just surrendered would say, she claims she was just joking. Then she leaves a little toy jobby for Alfie with Toya, and she rushes off, claiming to have enjoyed her day. Toya reminds her to sign the memory book. So,
Right, yes.
our laming ceremony consists of the poem, the lit candle, 2 inappropriate life mentors, and a memory book.
Right, and
This sounds
a
wonderful.
non-denominational officiant.
Right.
Yet another job they refuse to give Billy.
Back at poor Billy. Back at home, Imran reveals that he's not buying this Abby business, but Toya thinks that she seems genuine. The battle is over. Imran looks forlornly down at the wee jobby toy. Meanwhile, Abby...
Which says mummy.
Did it?
Yes, so mummy is written in the heart.
Oh, nice.
Which is nice.
Meanwhile, Abby is meeting a shady bloke in the ITV Studios car park, handing over some envelopes. You could get into bother for this, says the shady bloke. I'm already in jail, says Abby. This is my breakout. And I think at this point we'd worked out what was going on here. Had you?
That she's getting a passport for
Right.
Alfie.
Right.
Yeah.
So on Wednesday, Ben's got the coffees at the law office and he explains how pissed Abby was yesterday when she learned of the new employment arrangement. And this surprises Imran, who thought that she seemed okay with it. Abby finds Toya and Alfie at Nina's rolls. After some polite chit-chat, Abby asked to take him for a walk on the Red Wreck. Toya isn't sure and offers to go with, but Abby doesn't like the insinuation that she's a nutbag who can't be trusted with her own son. Toya promises that she doesn't think that, but she does think that. And Abby lays it on so thick that Toya is forced to agree to Abby getting some unsupervised time with her own child. And I was thinking at this point, Toya's response should be, you'll need to speak to Imran about this. He's the one who was granted custody.
Still, Toya just wants everybody to get along because she's afraid of how this looks, which, maybe should have been a consideration before they started this whole thing.
Yeah. This, however, did give us a scene with Abby and Toya kind of on their own together.
Right.
Where if there was any cahoots going on between the two of them, I think we'd have got a bigger clue to it then, and there wasn't any.
No.
Toya was very uncertain about it and really felt pressured into agreeing to what
No,
Abby
if
was
anything,
suggesting.
there are 3 separate plots going on here. Abby has a plot,
Right.
Imran has a plot, and Toya has a plot.
Yep. Imran comes along later and wonders where Alfie is and goes ballistic when Toya explains that Abby has taken him to the Red Wreck. He shits himself when she doesn't answer her phone and then gets Toya to call her because thinking that she's more likely to answer Toya's call. Toya thinks this is an overreaction, but Imran imagines that she could be on a plane by now. Thanks for nothing, Toya. And Imran is really kind of pissed off at Toya here.
He really is. It's just, he keeps overreacting at these things. And, I mean, a part of me is like, well, yes, he should be overreacting to these things, but so much of this is his fault that things have escalated this badly between everyone. It's kind of like, well, look in the mirror, pal.
But no sooner has Toya done that than Abby appears back on the street with Alfie. She explains that she was off feeding the ducks. She turned her phone onto silent because she didn't want the ducks disturbed. And doesn't have to explain herself to Imran anyway. Talk about trust, she says, and she storms off as Toya apologises for him and Abby looks a little bit smug again.
What were they feeding the ducks?
And what part was Alfie playing in all this?
Right, yeah. Alfie was not feeding the ducks.
No.
No.
Those ducks went hungry. Back home, Councillor Toya has to have a word with Imran about his behaviour and about trust and about giving people goals, have those people attain those goals, and then still treating the people like they haven't achieved the goals that you set them. Imran promises to do better. And Abby is in the community garden on the phone to the dodgy bloke, talking about dodgy passports. Seemingly they should arrive next week, so that's quite exciting, isn't it, Helen? That's as far as we get with that. It's a little bit of a set-up week in terms of this storyline, and the only thing that really had was the naming ceremony, which I think was deliberately made out to be as lame as possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
absolutely.
Toya. Because
Well,
isn't
it
Toya
wasn't-
lame?
But it wasn't even Toya's idea. It was Leanne's idea. So if anybody's lame here, it's Leanne.
That's a good shout.
Yeah. Yeah. Back
No.
off Toya.
Oh,
But no, not you.
right.
Just in general. It's interesting to me that other people on the street seem to be taking sides now, whereas before everybody was against Abby, or it seemed like everyone was against Abby.
Right.
Now people are like, because when she brought him to the factory and he was wearing that mummy's boy,
Right, what is Imran thinking there?
One day.
Jesus.
he's not. He is completely insensitive, which does not feel like that's part of his character to be this insensitive, but whatever. But Toya could have changed that child,
Yeah, or not taking them into the factory.
instead of just throwing a jacket on him.
And let's be honest, the only reason that people saw it is because Sean decided that
It was
he
too
going-
hot in there.
Right, which is not really Sean's business.
No. And it may be too hot for you, an adult Sean, But that doesn't mean it's too hot for the bebe.
Right.
Because bebes can't really regulate their temperature as well as you, an adult, can, Sean. So keep your hands off the bebe, Sean.
Right.
With your dirty, dirty hands.
Yeah. Sally thought that the T-shirt was the trade descriptions would be all over that shit.
Right. Yeah, and it wasn't, but, and it wasn't even just Sally. Beth got some digs in there as well. Like, well,
That's Beth.
You are, but last week it seemed like Beth was getting her digs in. Or not last week, like a few weeks ago, Beth seemed willing to be on the side of people disparaging Abby.
Right.
So I think she just likes to disparage whoever is in the room.
Now, I didn't think that you needed a passport for a kid that age, but it seems that you do.
To get out of the country, yes.
Right.
But...
Because I think when I was a kid, I was on my parents' passport.
Oh, yeah, but this was before 9/11 when you were a kid.
Do you know that was before 9/11?
Yes.
A couple of years before.
9/11 changed an awful lot of stuff because before 9/11, kids could travel without passports.
Right.
A lot of times and stuff. I remember when we went to the Bahamas shortly after 9/11, there was a moment where we were afraid we were going to have to leave Nick behind at the airport because Nick didn't have a passport. But we did have his birth certificate, so that worked. But in order to get a passport for a child, especially a child that young, both parents have to sign for it and agree.
Yep. This is even the case in the UK as well, because I did some digging on it.
Right. Because there have been far too many parents who have kidnapped their children and taken them to a country with no extradition.
Yep. The only time you don't need to have both parents is if the father is undeclared on the birth certificate.
Right, yeah. Or if
because
only...
obviously, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so that's that storyline as we move on into presumably Abby attempting to kidnap
Her own
own child next week. So there's something for us all to look forward to, right? Mm-hmm. Our next storyline this morning is Fizzy's secret. On Monday, Phill with 2 L's has dropped Fizz off at work and there's chat about meeting after work for dinner with a couple of Phill with 2 L's nameless friends. Maybe the same people as sinkhole Leo's flatmates, I'm hoping. Mm-hmm. Fizz is nervous about meeting new people, but Phill with 2 L's assures us it'll be fine. And later, Fizz asks Elon to look after the girls, and she makes a big deal about it, but agrees. At work, Fizz is still worried about meeting new people. Sean and Beth give her a bit of a hard time for looking like a hag, so Fizz panics and runs away from work in the middle of the day to get her hair done.
Yeah. Beth should not be speaking.
Ever.
And Sean should not be speaking about blouses. Let's not forget the peacock.
So at the barber's, Fizz is getting her hair done just as Evelyn comes in. Fizz has actually stolen Evelyn's appointment somehow. They chat about Fizzy's plans for the evening. Your hair is beautiful, says Evelyn. Told you so, says Maria. But that top looks fucking horrendous, says Evelyn. At Speed Dial, Phill with 2 L's introduces Fizz to Graham and Angela, which I think is the most neutral name for friends that they can come up with.
Graham and Angela?
Graham and Angela, yeah. Fizz is very nervous about this and is overly pleasant to the both of them. Graham and Angela seem harmless enough, although Graham is sure that he's met Fizz before. During the meal, Graham just won't let it go and he keeps at it, asking Fizz how he knows her, but then it hits him. He was a solicitor in the prosecution working on the case against John Stape. Thank fuck for that, says Graham. That was really bugging me. But Fizz just wants the ground to open up and swallow her. Graham just makes matters worse by wanting to talk about it constantly, never having met the ex-spouse of a serial killer. Fizz has had enough and runs out, claiming that she needs fresh air, and she tells Phill to just stay where he is.
Now, Angela is at least a little sympathetic here. But
Yeah.
Graham, it's like, read the room, pal.
Seriously. For a solicitor, I'm surprised that he's so
Blasé.
blasé and keen to talk about obviously personal and
Right.
obviously kind of affecting
Right.
subjects.
Yes.
That's clearly making
off.
Fizz feel
Right.
uncomfortable. But I did appreciate that somebody doesn't know something or somebody remembers something.
Right.
Because all these things seem to happen in a little bubble on the street
Right.
that,
Yeah.
you know, they meet other people and nobody's ever heard of the time that Abby blew that car up.
Right, yeah.
Or they've all forgotten, oh, you're the person that blew that car up.
Right.
It's nice that somebody knows or says that, well, you're the guy, you're the woman who was married to that guy.
Right.
I quite like those little...
Poor Fizz, though, because this is the second time John Stape has come up in the past couple of years.
Yeah, and he
After the
comes
whole
up...
Jid thing. There are other serial killers on the street. Why does it always have to be John Stape that we talk about? I guess Eileen talks about her serial killer ex-husband as well quite a bit.
Yeah, that's kind of done more for comedy at the moment.
Right, yes.
I'm sure
because nothing's more hilarious than murder.
That makes me laugh. Tyrone happens upon Fizz looking sad in the community garden. You look sad, he says, and he takes her home for a cuppa. So back home, Fizz explains what happened. Tyrone is surprised that she's never mentioned John to Phill with 2 L's. She was worried it would make her look bad, she says. Tyrone is very comforting, telling her that she has nothing to be worried about. All of this is going to work out just fine, because Phill, you know what? He's a nice bloke. He's not going to care.
Right.
So Tyrone has made Fizz feel better by talking about being scummy with biscuits in nice places. He tells her that she did the right thing about telling Phill and John about John, and just at that, Phill turns up with Fizz's handbag, or his handbag, or a handbag. And Phill is dead apologetic about it all. Fizz just didn't want him to think bad of her. None of this was your fault, he says, and he knew about it anyway, but didn't want to bring the subject up.
Right.
Fizz has never spoken about it outside of those walls. No one knows how bad it was, and so they leave. Phill thanks Tyrone. You're a good man, Charlie Brown, says Fizz. And when they're gone, Ty realises that being a good guy isn't enough. Because he really wants back with Fizz.
Right, yes. Well, it's his own fucking fault.
So on Wednesday, Fizz is at work complaining about last night's meal, which comes as a surprise to Michael, who finally makes a connection. He's a true crime fan and goes off to see if there's a podcast about the case. This pisses Fizz off more than her misery could be someone's entertainment.
Right.
Plus, Sean is a total prick. Beth tries to make Fizz feel better, but only succeeds in making matters worse. Beth says that she was only defending Fizz. Fizz points out that she didn't do anything wrong, therefore does not need defending.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And then the Rovers later, Fizz is complaining about everything to Phill with 2 L's. Phill decides that they should never go to social events ever again and is understanding to her sensitivity. Phill worries that poor Hope has it the worst because she's inherited John Stape's baggage hefty surname.
Right.
Fizz thanks Phill with 2 L's for his ear, goes off for a shite, just as Phill gets a call from someone mysterious who he has sent an email to.
Yes.
So on Friday, in Nina's Rolls, Phill and Fizz are having breakfast when Michael comes in over to apologise. And then Fizz asks Phill to pick up the girls later, but he's off to Leeds to pick up some stuff for their, was it their patio or something he was doing?
Right. Yeah, some tiles for the patio. I really like the use of Michael in this storyline, I have to say. You know, not just the whole, oh, that's right, that guy was from around here. I never made the connection. I never realized that you were blah,
Right.
blah, 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 blah. But also the whole podcast thing. Because I think this is something that people are starting to talk about now, about the popularity of true crime and the popularity of some of these podcasts,
Right.
some which are very sensitive to the fact that survivors still exist,
Yeah, some less so.
and others very much less so.
Right.
and how it's kind of insensitive to use other people's misery as entertainment. And, you know, I think that's an interesting conversation to have, even if it, albeit brief, you know, but it's interesting to hear somebody say, well, I hope there's not a podcast about me, because first of all, you'd think if there was a podcast about this, somebody would have approached me about it. And also, my misery is not someone else's entertainment.
Yeah, the fact of the matter is that it was a serial killer, so probably is a podcast about it.
Yeah. Probably. Somewhere.
So, Phil's going to Leeds. Fizz calls on Tyrone to pick up the girls, and Phill looks shifty as fuck about all of this. So Tyrone has picked up the girls as planned, and as he walks home, he spots Phill and a dodgy bloke exchanging an envelope with Alfie's photographs in them, perhaps? In the community garden. Phill is most definitely not in Leeds. So later, Fizz and Phill visit Tyrone to pick up the kids, and Ty starts quizzing Phill about his trip to Leeds. Clearly uncomfortable, Phill goes to get the girls, which allows Fizz to ask Ty what he's up to. Just making conversation here, says Tyrone. And that's as far as we get with that this week. Now, all this mention of John Stape and confirmation that Phill knew about Fizz and John Stape previously kind of suggests to me that what's going on here is something that's John Stape related.
Really?
Yeah, there's some... Phil's up to something.
Right, but it could just be...
And he's up to something shifty.
It could be just a nice surprise for Fizz that he doesn't want anybody to know about. It could be something very, very innocent.
I think we're being led to believe that it's something
I think we're being
dodgy,
led,
obviously, right?
I think we're being led to believe it's something dodgy. But because we're being led to think it's something dodgy, I think it's something very, very innocent, and it's just going to make Tyrone look like a fool.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Because we've been down this road before.
Oh, we're constantly going down this road for
Right.
a new character's introduced. So what is their problem? The only one that's kind of avoided that recently is Cinco Leo,
Right.
where he had his like dodgy
Friends.
flatmates, and that was pretty much it. Now we just see him hanging off Jenny's arm, and
Occasionally.
there's nothing really going on there,
Right.
as far as we know. But Phill is made to look shifty about something. Phill, you got to worry about the kind of mental aptitude of these people when they say they're going to be someplace like miles and miles away, but instead they're meeting somebody on the sly
In the community garden, in full view
in a
of
town that-
everybody on the street.
where they no longer live.
Right, yeah. Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
Which, again, makes me feel like this is actually quite innocent, whatever it is.
I think, Tyrone's realisation that he still loves Fizz, obviously. There's a nice
Right.
few lines there where he remarks about how pretty Fizz is when she smiles. And
Right.
even has a go at him for running off with one of the cheeky girls. Well, this is what you
Right.
get.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. And he kind of realises that he has made this bed
And he must lie in
and he
it
must
alone.
lie in it, right? But, yeah, maybe that is the rug that's going to be pulled from under this storyline, is that this is just a way for Tyrone to screw up his own reconciliation with Fizz
Right.
by making a big song and dance about this. Kirk warns him, you're just back in good terms with Fizz. Do you really want to make things worse by accusing their boyfriend of...
One of the few intelligent things Kirk has ever said.
Right. But then Tyrone could have mentioned it, and then Fizz could have mentioned it to Phil, and we could have found out. So it's
Right.
the continuation of the...
But instead, he takes it upon himself to ask Phill all of these leading questions about leads. Ha 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 ha.
Right.
Anyway.
All right, moving on then to our next storyline, which is Glad Max. Not Mad Max anymore.
No, now it's Glad Max.
So Monday,
Put away the flaming guitar.
Max and David turn up in Nina's roles. David explains to Shona and to us that it's the day of Max's sentencing thing after his guilty plea for spiking Amy's drinks. Now, all we have to worry about is him getting into another school, says Shona, because according to David, this is proven harder than he thought.
Shocker.
Right. Later, Max has got off with a year's referral and he's on probation. Could have been a lot worse. David hopes that he's
Should
learned
have been a
from
lot
his
worse.
mistakes. Later, it's bad news because Max has been knocked back from the first 4 choices of school that David's wanted, and he's been left with Smeltings, the school that Uncle Vernon wanted to send Harry Potter to. It's still a school, says Shona. Just about, says David. At least he can't get expelled from there. David isn't sure about him attending a school with other bad eggs, and he calls it an ASBO Omelette, which I thought was quite funny. Later, Max reveals that one of his mates goes to Smeltings, and it's not so bad after all, and maybe that's where he needs to be, and he looks blasé about it until David tells him that he starts tomorrow.
Whoa.
On Wednesday, it's Max's first day, and Gail has got him a present of a honking new school bag that Max promises to leave in the car or he'll get swirlied before lunch.
Which is...
There's nothing wrong with that rucksack.
It looks exactly like the one David, like the one he had already. I thought at some point Gail was going to point out that it was bulletproof or something, that it had some sort of feature that will keep him safe in this dodgy school, which would have been hilarious and fun.
Like if it had a inflation device or something that would stop him getting swirled.
Right. Or just, with a bulletproof panel or something. Something that will point out that he's going to...
Taking bulletproof things into school isn't that great.
Well, but still, it would be Gail thinking that his life is in danger or something, instead of it's just a new rucksack in a slightly different color, which
Right.
looks exactly like the one he already has, with no decoration on it whatsoever.
See, I took this as being a kind of sign of Max's sociopathy. He doesn't think about how Gail was going to feel about him putting this rucksack in the trunk of the car and
Right.
accidentally, deliberately losing it.
Right.
Despite the fact that Gail has done some research on it, and
Right.
it's supposedly the thing that all the kids have got these days because it's a rucksack.
Yeah, in a solid color.
And
With like
has-
all other...
Has used hard-earned money to buy it.
Right.
It's like, what a shit. Poor Gail.
Most 15-year-old kids are shits, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I bought Stelly, expensive sneakers that she picked out, which she barely wore. Teenagers are shit when it comes to things like that.
Yes, they are. At the barber's, David is fretting about Max's first day, but when he comes in, he's had a grand old time. The school has been a hit. He's made friends, and there's even talk of a girl who's also interested in filmmaking, just like we need to remember that Max was too.
Right, yes.
On Friday, in Nina's roles, Max tries to chat to Summer, but she still isn't interested, and even though he tells her not to leave on his account, she leaves on his account. Later, he tells David that he realises the magnitude of the task to make amends, but he vows that he's up to it, although he's a little weird when he says that. Back at home, Max has received a text from Chris, not journalist Chris,
No.
and has made arrangements to meet up after his homework is done, and that's as far as we get with that storyline this week.
Yes. There is some speculation that this is the storyline which will allow Max to come out. That it's not the girl that he's interested in, it's this Chris.
Oh,
Although maybe Chris
never
isn't.
thought about that.
No. Even though there was speculation that when he spiked Daniel's drink, it was not just to make him pass out.
Oh. Oh, isn't that convenient? Oh, that's far more creepy and shoddy than it even was, and it already was those things.
Yes, it was.
Now it's more of that. If that's the case, that it wasn't no accident.
No. I'm pissed he only got probation for drugging a girl. I'm not surprised, but I am pissed.
Right.
Because unfortunately that seems kind of true to life.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
So this kind of went hand in hand with the next storyline, which is interview with a Fanny. On Monday at school, Mrs. Crawshaw grabs a word with Daniel. He's done such a smashing job investing 1,000 man-hours into planning the Edinburgh trip
That we never get to see.
She thinks he should apply for a permanent position that's opened itself up. If you need anything else opening up, give me a shout, she says, because remember,
Uh-huh.
she came on to him.
Right.
We've kind of forgotten about that,
Yes, we have.
but we do well to remember it because...
Nikki hasn't forgotten, though, because Nikki gives him a hard time later on about this.
Right. But here she is, having...
Propositioned him.
Albeit in his house, but there was other people present, so essentially in public. And now she's telling him about a job that he needs to apply for and get an interview for, and it all seems a little dodgy, doesn't it?
Yes.
At the Rovers, Daniel is down in the dumps. Paul can't believe he's not over the moon about this, especially when Nicky says that Crawshaw wants to have his babies. But Daniel is sad because his family hates him, and Daisy won't respond to his texts, and they
It's
can't
not-
even blame them.
It's nice that they've remembered that Paul lives with Daniel now.
Yeah.
That we get to see them actually hanging out.
He's
and
getting
being
crowbarred
friends.
into a few scenes here. It's like they've remembered it, so now
Right.
they need to keep on remembering it.
Right, yes.
Nicky sucks a thoughtful tooth here and decides to go to the florist to plead to Tracy and Ken about Daniel and how he's really down in the dumps. Oh, who gives a fuck, says Tracy. Nicky begs them not to push him away. Ken appreciates it, but Tracy tells her to sling her hook. And at home, Tracy remains furious, but Ken thinks it was a nice gesture and it's good someone's looking out for Daniel. What about Amy? Asks Tracy. Oh, fucking drop it, says Ken, whilst Amy looks sad. So on Wednesday, Daniel's having a lonely breakfast at Nina's Rolls when Ken comes in to check on him. Daniel is confused when Ken cares, but Ken insists that he's Daniel's dad, and so that's why he's forced to give a fuck about this. He thinks Daniel will be a fine teacher based on nothing and helps him crib for his interview. And they learn from Shona that this is Max's first day at his new school, which Ken thinks will keep him out of Daniel's hair and is very much a good thing.
Yes.
Tracy and Amy see Ken and Daniel coming out in Nina's roles, all friendly like, and Tracy has a fit about it. Daniel says he's sorry. So sorry that you're applying for a full-time job at the school where Amy's still at, says Tracy, and she promises to grass him up to Crawshaw. So Tracy goes round to Davis to try and get his support to grass on Daniel, because David's been affected by this as well, what with his son being in Borstal now, she says.
Right.
That was a very 80s thing to say from Tracy. 1980s.
The
Borstal.
1980s.
But David's had enough of all this, and he's in no hurry to ever see Crawshaw again. So back home, Tracy remains furious with Ken. Ken says that he's not doing anything wrong, pointing out that Daniel is sorry. Amy comes in and is unimpressed by all of this. She doesn't want this to tear the family apart, and anyway, none of it's Ken's fault. Amy wants it all left alone, and she'll deal with this herself, and Ken is very impressed. Later, Daniel walks by David and Max. Daniel asks about Max's first day, and David repays the pleasantness by being a dick about Daniel's interview, which we understand is tomorrow. Then Tracy goes to see Daniel, and she tells him that she didn't grass him up thanks to Amy, who now wants to move on, but Tracy still wants nothing to do with Daniel, and tells him to stay the fuck away from her. On Friday, Daniel's in Nina's roles prepping for his interview. Nikki tells him not to stress. Crawshaw is on his dick. Daniel is still worried about a Tracy intervention, but he thanks Nikki for having his back. And then he bumps into Amy at the florist and thanks her for hauling back Tracy. Amy points out that she did it for the family and appreciates how sorry Daniel is. Let's look to the future, she says. So she appears to have forgiven.
Well, kinda, because she's
Is that
still
cautious forgiveness?
right. She's like, She's like, haven't forgiven you. What you did was a dick move, but for the family, I'm willing to move on. You know, she's very quick to say, I didn't do any of this for you. This isn't for you. I
Right.
still hate you.
Because there's nothing wrong with a good old-fashioned feud, especially within a family. It would be a misstep, I think, for Daniel to be forgiven completely. So at least if Tracy still hates him,
Right.
and the two of them can't be in the same room together, that's a good thing, because that's going to cause conflict
And
left,
if
right, and centre.
if there's something we know about Tracy, it's that she can hold a grudge.
She certainly can. And Amy, yeah, maybe Amy has, maybe it says how much Daniel is to her, that she can kind of let it go. He's not a big part of her life. She can quite happily go on without him,
Yeah.
and not miss it.
No.
So at home, Daniel's prepping for his interview by watching Sinead videos. Nicky and Paul come in and realising that he's down in the dumps again, and they do their best to buoy his spirits and tell him to put his mistakes behind him. So then it is time for the interview, where Crawshaw and two unspeaking extras are quizzing Daniel about what his biggest weakness is, asks Crawshaw. Honesty, says Daniel. I don't think honesty is a weakness, says Crawshaw. I don't give a fuck what you think, says Daniel. And he straightens his tie and makes basketball free throw motions. The interview's hilarious.
Yeah, it's
Where do you see yourself in 5 years? I don't know.
right. That is a dumb question, though, especially in this day and age, where we could all be dead in 5 years.
I got asked that when I applied for the job that I've got when I was still in Scotland. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I said, you're asking me where I see myself in 5 years when I'm today applying for a job in another country.
Right.
How are you supposed to answer that?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't. Is it supposed to be that you're giving your aspirations and your ambitious you are and all that sort of thing? I don't
Right,
know.
but you don't want to seem too ambitious because they don't want to hire you and then you're gone within 5 years. So
What was
it's
the
a
other
loaded question.
The other question was, what was your greatest achievement?
Right, and he says, I have no greatest achievement.
Right.
Even though he has a son.
And has successfully organised an Edinburgh trip.
Right, yes.
Could have talked about that.
And assisted with the protest about the upskirting, which everybody has forgotten about.
Yeah.
And no one faced any consequences for.
I'm glad that he fucked this up, and I'm glad that he's not getting it, but I'd like him to not get it for the right reasons, and it
Right.
feels like he's not getting it for the wrong reasons here.
Right, yeah, like he's making a decision to fuck it up.
Crawshaw asks him what the fuck he's doing. Daniel wants a job, but doesn't think he's cut out for it anymore. His year has been a disaster, what with Max, Summer and Amy, and that Mr. Osborne is a Fanny thing that seems to have taken off. Sorry, you're wasting your time, he says, and he leaves. At the Rovers, Daniel announces to the bar that he's leaving teaching. David congratulates him and suggests for his follow-up that he leaves the country as well. Daisy watches on, pretending not to be interested. Same again, asks Daisy. No, I don't think things will ever be the same again, says melodramatic Daniel.
Oy, oy, oy.
That's kind of like that scene from Airplane where the guy says to Ted Stryker, nervous? I said, yeah. First time? No, I've been nervous before. Daniel gets home to find Nikki turning into a duvet. He explains that he's fucked his interview and doesn't think he has it in him to be a teacher anymore. Nikki tries to talk him round. She helped him before. She can help him again. And she grabs his hand, pretty much tells him that she loves him, and asks if he wants his hole. And he knocks her back. You're all right, thanks, he says. Now let's pretend that this never happened.
Right, yeah.
That's as far as we get with that.
Because he still loves Daisy.
Yeah, Daisy's not out of his system, he says.
Nope.
And I think he's not out of Daisy's system,
Nope.
judging by how she responds to him.
Right.
But
Poor Nikki. At least he doesn't lead her on and use her as kind of a rebound.
right.
Because that would have been a shitty thing to do. Which would have been a Daniel thing to do. But at least in this instance, he doesn't do that.
Nikki has shown signs throughout her return to the show that despite her claiming that she doesn't have feelings for Daniel, she clearly very much does.
But if we learned anything from the whole summer incident, it's that Daniel doesn't catch on to these clues very well.
Yeah, he's fairly oblivious to...
So oblivious.
Except when he wasn't. Because remember, he wasn't with Lydia.
Yeah.
He did a little bit of chasing there.
But I think that's because he was also interested in Lydia, whereas he was not interested in Summer or Nikki.
Right.
It's only when there's a mutual thing going on that he's aware of it.
Yeah, because I think whenever he looks at Nikki, he just remembers that sex cardigan, and I don't think he can get by it.
Yeah, and how embarrassing it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it was.
Yeah.
Even he admits it's creepy now. So.
This does beg the question, though, if Daniel's not going to be a teacher, what the fuck is he going to be? And maybe David has the right idea here. There's nothing keeping him here. He's got this wedge of cash from his mother's house. He could head off and do whatever he wants to do somewhere else.
I think somehow he's still going to get that position.
Yeah, I think he's going to get it as well.
Because let's be honest, nobody is clamoring to be a teacher these days.
The show has taught us nothing other than the fact that he's the only teacher in that school.
Right.
And they don't have a teacher assistant anymore.
Right, yeah. And he wasn't even a full-time teacher.
Right. Yeah, somehow his non-responses to those two questions are going to make him the prime candidate.
Right. It's going to make him appear honest and frank. And I don't know necessarily what it's like in the UK right now, but right now they have to get the National Guard in to substitute teach because nobody wants to teach anymore because it's just such a shit job where nobody really cares about your health and well-being. They just want somebody to babysit their kids for 8 hours.
Yeah. Do you notice that Shona was representing lots of parents who have those kind of opinions where you're paid for babysitting and you're paid for 8 weeks of summer vacation time and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can just hear every teacher in the country just their heckles rising at the mere thought of paid time off.
Right. Where most of them have to get jobs.
Yeah. Our friend Mark Baker, a math and physics and gym teacher at school.
Who also coaches.
Used to work at my work over the summer for extra cash.
Right, yeah. Teachers deserve so much better. than what they get.
All right, moving on to
Anyway.
our penultimate storyline this morning is...
Wow, we're really just rolling through this.
Yeah, I need to...
You need to go lie down. It's the problem.
Once we're done. Penultimate story is shower of shite. On Friday, outside the florist, Amy and Jacob are talking about their broken boiler, how they can't afford to fix it, and how they both reek. Jacob would kill, literally kill, for a shower. Later, Tracy catches Amy in the Rovers. She's supposed to be working. What are you doing in here?
Right.
And she came in to use the toilet or something?
Right, yeah. Apparently there's no bathroom in the florist. Good to know.
Amy's fucking reeking, so Tracy sprays her with perfume.
Yes.
What a horrible thing to do to somebody.
Right, especially your own kid.
Back at her table, Tracy tells Steve that she worries that Amy isn't taking care of herself properly. According to Dev, according to Asha, the flat is grim AF and Amy is struggling to pay for her groceries. So Jacob and Amy are being smelly in Nina's rolls. Amy goes off back to work and then Mary comes out of the bog from doing her shite, complaining that Tracy wanted her or sent her home to grab her order book.
Right.
But now she can't be arsed. So Jacob offers to get it for her if Mary gives him the keys.
Right.
Whew. Mary, who has decided to be lazy today, complies, grateful for his help. No raking through my knicker drawer now, she says. I promise nothing, says Jacob. And off he goes.
I love the two of them.
The two of them are
together.
amazing.
They're so adorable. Yeah. More Jacob and Mary scenes, please. Because they're just... I love that Mary is one of the few people that are on Jacob's side at this point.
Mary feeds off these little flirtations.
Right.
Jacob knows this
Right.
and totally plays up to it.
Right.
Because any other kid in that situation would have been embarrassed
Right.
or shocked or whatever,
Right.
or would have just ignored it.
Right.
But he plays on it.
He does.
And he takes it up to another, I'm not going to promise. And the two of them, when
so
he tells her to
cute.
sit down as well, he's so cute because he says,
Right.
park your pillows.
Yes.
And she loves that as well.
I'm a wee cuppa. I'll take care of it.
Right.
It's nice.
So Jacob's gone round to Eileen's and's had a much needed shower and he's Lynx Africaing his undercarriage when Eileen comes in, screams and orders him out.
Right, because all of the stuff he should have done in the bathroom, he's doing right in the center of the living room. Because comedy.
Well, sometimes, if you've been in the shower for too long and the bathroom's too hot, you like to stand out and
Right. But you don't stand out and then walk down the stairs.
in somebody else's house.
Right.
Right.
That you're not supposed to be in anyway. And you're only there supposedly to get an order book
Right.
and not to take a shower.
A plot order book. Yeah.
Right. Because here's the thing. If he had said to Mary, would you mind if I took a quick shower while I was there? I'm sure she would have said yes.
Mary would have been fine about that.
She would have been absolutely fine.
Should have probably offered to scrub his back for him.
Right?
So Mary and Tracy are at the florist and overhear Eileen attempting to murder Jacob. They race to intervene.
Eileen smash.
Jacob explaining about the order book and how their boiler at home is broken and now their light has been turned off as well. We need to talk, says Tracy.
Yes, she does.
So she takes him back to number one. And Jacob explains how he and Amy are struggling. Tracy points out that it's a council flat, so the council are responsible to fix stuff. But
Right.
Jacob reveals that the rent book is in his sister's name and she's done a bunk, and if the council find out, they'll be kicked out of the place. So Tracy tells Jacob that if he loves Amy, he'll encourage her to come home. She needs to live somewhere clean and warm and dry because she's got studies that she needs to be taken care
Right,
of.
yes.
And Jacob seems to think about this.
But nobody gives a fuck about you, Jacob.
Well, he says that he makes the comment that he's used to living like this.
Right.
Still not great though.
No. And this would have been a point where Tracy kind of takes a moment to recognize her privilege here and be sympathetic finally towards Jacob. And
That's what I
say,
thought was going to happen, yeah.
and say, nobody deserves to live like this, including you. Even you deserve better.
Right. Even you.
Even you, Jacob, deserve better than to live in a moldy flat.
Right.
But see, here's the thing. This boiler, it can't be just for their apartment. It can't be just for their flat. And the downstairs neighbors have been complaining about this leak
Yep.
to them and telling them they need to get it fixed. Why are the downstairs neighbors not going to the council?
See, my flat had its own boiler in Stirling.
Really? Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Like a tiny one.
Right.
Just for a tiny flat. But yeah, it had its own. I had control over my own hot water and stuff. But that wasn't a council flat.
Right. And again, if there's a leak going into the downstairs flat, those people should be complaining to the council,
Yes.
not to Jacob and Amy.
Correct.
Unless they are living there illegally as well.
Right. Yeah, I wonder why Amy can't pretend to be his sister.
Unless the council know what Jacob's sister looks like.
Right.
Unfortunately, Jacob's sister is left.
Because
She's already
pushed
She's already pushed Adam down
off the mezzanine level
off
of them all. Yeah.
Right, yes.
Let's not forget.
Wouldn't it be hilarious if they
Every time
if they did bring her back as his sister?
And people think you're
Wait a
Lydia.
second.
Who's Lydia? Oh my God, you look totally like Lydia, who pushed me off the mezzanine level of them all, says Adam.
Oh, that's
Ah,
horrible. I would never do that to you.
right. Meet my child, who's 10 years old and has something of a Scottish accent.
Finn.
Finn, yeah.
Yes.
Anyway,
Yeah, this whole treating Jacob, here's Jacob confessing about the fact that he has no parents to speak of.
his mother's been in and out of jail. His dad's never been around.
His sister has left.
And his sister sounds like his only constant.
Right, yeah.
But she's done a bunk on him now as well.
Well, it seems like she just moved in with her boyfriend, so it's not like she's... You'd think that she could go to the council and pretend to still live there. If she's still nearby, and it sounds like she's still nearby. It feels like there would be a way out of all of this, but that this is just manifesting this storyline about how Jacob can't take care of Amy.
Right.
So Amy has to go home. And it's really... You know, I've complained about how the show treats the poor before with the whole Gemma and...
Oh, yeah.
There was an opportunity to show some sympathy towards this character, and they missed it.
I think that they're showing it from other people. Like, despite his dodgy introduction to the show last year, he has been accepted by...
The Knicker people.
The Knicker people are all over him. Sarah thinks he's fantastic at sales,
Right.
which is a great attribute for him. Could you...
Right.
Selling knickers and selling drugs, I think, is probably... There is a intersection of
Right.
those skill sets. I can imagine them being pretty good. He's got the gift of the gab, clearly.
Right. Absolutely.
So I can see him being really good at that. So he's fitting in quite well
Right,
there.
and now that
seems
he
to be
has-
making friends.
Now that he has that new job, I would assume that makes more money. So you'd think that it wouldn't be nearly as bad as they're making it out to be.
Yeah, if he's
he's-
really working in a sales position
Right.
in a knicker factory, he's got to be bringing in a little bit more money than running chippies all over the place on his bike.
Right. And let's remember, Kirk and Beth can afford
Right.
a flat and to feed themselves and to take care of Peanut when they both work at the Knicker factory.
Well, and Kirk's
As a
expensive
packer.
medical conditions.
Right. His feet.
Yeah, we got a taster of that this week.
Ugh. Whereas Phil's feet smell like a baby's head.
Lovely stuff.
Yes.
All right, our last storyline this morning is Tim's Boaby. This is the main story of the week. This is a story that ends the week. This is the end of week cliffhanger. Oh, on Monday, Debbie catches Tim early in the morning after his night shift on the taxis and ropes him into buying tickets for a raffle with big prizes, one of which is a pair of Weathy County box tickets. Tim can't throw his money quick enough at it and buys a tenner's worth. Other prizes include a night at a hotel,
Yeah.
a free haircut,
A night at the Rape Hotel with spa treatment.
a doorbell camera. The draw is this afternoon. Tim wakes up from a nap to find Sally soaking herself in the hot tub. She invites him in, but he decides that hot water isn't good for his heart and he has to go to the bistro for
And
the
he's right.
raffle results anyway.
He is right. Hot
Right.
water is not good for your heart.
Sally announces that she will join him. So at the bistro, the raffle has been drawn. Steve won the doorbell cam, and Tim has won the top prize. Tim thinks this is the county prize, but the top prize was actually the overnight stay at Debbie's Rape Hotel. Which I think is what it's called now. In neon, it says Debbie's Rape Hotel over the door. Fabulous, says Sally. Pig's tits, says Tim. Doorbell cam, says Steve. Where the county ticket went to Ronnie, which everyone thinks is now suspicious because it was Debbie's draw, Debbie's raffle, blah, blah, blah.
And also you would think Ronnie, as the uncle of a player, could get tickets anytime he wants.
There's a thought.
Because let's remember, James is a thing on this show.
Yeah.
We haven't seen him in months. But he's still a thing on the show.
It's also Steve's Oliver's Fund thing that they're doing the charity raffle for.
Right.
So him
it's
winning
weird
a prize
that him winning anything
is a bit dodgy also.
Yes.
Anyway. Sally's keen to get to the hotel pronto to enjoy their overnight stay and spa treatment and wine, but Tim would prefer to leave it for a few weeks. No chance, says Sally. So at home, Sally's off packing for a night in a hotel in town, while Tim is right on his laptop looking up dodgy illegal Viagras.
Well, are they dodgy?
No, I don't think they are. On Wednesday, come on, Tim, shouts Sally. But Tim is pretending to be concerned about the garden and wants to delay March further with a bacon sarnie. Sally is insistent, though. Tim maintains his fake interest in the garden. He's really looking for the postman.
Absolutely.
Sally's beginning to lose her patience and wants to get rocking to their intimate couples massage.
Ha-ha.
On the way out, Tim grabs Gail and asks her to keep an eye out for a special package he's having delivered for Sally.
But not like that.
She agrees to take the package in and text him when it arrives. Then off they fuck 5 minutes down the street to the Rape Hotel. Later, Tim and Sally are being pampered. And Gail must text Tim because he makes his excuses that the gunpowder tea that they're drinking has gone right through him and he needs to nip off for the scoots. Well, it is supposed to be cleansing, says Sally.
That's right.
But what Tim's really doing is he's speeding home in his dressing gown and slippers.
It's a form of green tea, I think.
He grabs the package from Gail and then,
But not like that.
and then speeds back to the Rape Hotel. So back there, Tim has his pills now, but has to hide them as Sally comes back from her massage. They make plans to get wired into the champagne and Tara Masalata. He's looking forward to rogering her properly now, and Sally nips off for a shite, allowing Tim to start necking his meds, washing them down with champagne.
Yeah, which is not a great idea. And even Tim should realize that.
I'm going to hate myself for saying this, but there's a point where Tim opens up his dressing gown to hide his illegal or
His pills.
his little blue pills, and then to retrieve them.
Right. And what do we not see?
And for a man who had a triple heart bypass a mere weeks ago,
Yeah.
his chest is looking remarkably clear of a scar or any type of bandaging.
Right. Yes. There should be a massive scar there.
You should have thought so. So Tim and Sally burst into the room in the throes of passion when Tim notices that his heart is racing and he's out of breath and he's getting all clammy, and he falls on the bed, telling Sally about the unprescribed pills and begs her to call an ambulance. At the hospital, Sally is not happy when Tim starts lying to the doctor, and then he gets all embarrassed as Sally talks about his trouser problems. The doctor says the meds are fine and Tim's probably just had a panic attack. He gets it all clear, so they head back to the Rape Hotel again. Sally pours about 100 quid's worth of blue pills down the drain, and Tim has to admit that he never went to see Gadas in the first place and all this has been a lie. So when they finally get home, she's unhappy and he starts sniping at her. He says this has really hit his confidence and none of this has helped by Sally being a total fucking nympho. Shocked, Sally leaves Tim with his beer and heads out. She goes to complain to Gail and the Rovers, telling her about the pills. Ecstasy, says Gail.
That's right, Gail. That's exactly where your head should go first, is ecstasy.
Right. Well, I was waiting for her to say it.
Right.
Because the way that Sally's describing it, when she says pills, it does make it sound like some kind of narcotic pill.
Right.
And if it's that, then it really has to be ecstasy tabs, doesn't it?
I would have thought
really?
oxycodone, or, something of that nature, because who takes ecstasy anymore?
I don't know. It's still a thing.
I would assume so, but still, everybody's on these painkillers these days.
We're not the happy Mondays, says Sally, and they talk at length about Tim's erection. Gail explains
Or lack thereof.
how thrilled Tim seemed to be doing something nice for Sally earlier, and she eventually starts opening up about the erections of the men in her life, seemingly suggesting
Sally asks.
seemingly suggesting that Richard Hillman's inability to maintain a stiffy was the reason that he killed a bunch of people. Gail suggests talking to Tim. So Tim goes to see Steve while Sally's talking to Gail. And Steve gives Tim the benefit of his knowledge afforded to him from a library card and tells Tim to tell Sally that he hears her. Tim is careful not to spell out too much of his problem to Steve. But back home, Tim listens to Sally, apologises, tells her that he's listening to her, and promises to go and see Gadas for reals this time. He asks Sally to keep all of this between themselves, though. He couldn't face the humiliation if this got out, and Sally starts eating her own face as Tim nips upstairs. So today, Tim went from home to the hotel, back to the street to Gail's, back to the hotel, to the hospital, back to the hotel again, and finally back home.
Yes.
Whew, busy old day.
Yes. I can't believe they didn't keep him a little bit longer in that hospital. At least until... You'd think that they would have kept him on for observation, at least until the pills wore off.
Yeah, well...
Considering he had triple bypass surgery just last month.
Right. Yeah, even if it is a panic attack. And they want to get panic attacks out. Otherwise, the hospital would be filled with people having panic attacks.
Right.
So on Friday next morning, and Tim is still apologetic for yesterday and for blaming Sally. She's having fun clearing out the fridge, waving a wilted cucumber at him.
Right, yeah.
He promises to get his Boaby checked out, and she urges patience and to keep talking. Tim and Sally bump into Debbie and Ronnie, who have heard about the ambulance drama at the rape hotel. Sally blames it on a trapped nerve. That's what you get for fucking Tim too hard, Sal, says Debbie, and everyone laughs. At the factory, Sally has a quick word with Gail, checking to make sure that Gail knows to keep stum about Tim's Boaby. Gail suggests that the two of them, that's Sally and Tim, that is, do something to take their mind off the problem, and Sally has just the notion. So later in the Rovers, Steve is showing off his doorbell cam to Tim and Dev, and then Joyce spooking Gail. Dev shouting on her to flash her arse. Gail runs away into the road and is knocked down by Kathy and killed.
That was very funny.
Moody Gail! Gail's like, ah! Later still, Sally finds Ronnie in the Rovers and has a proposition for him. Later still at Street Cabs, Tim is watching Steve's door cam and sees and hears Sally and Ronnie chatting about their flop of a romantic getaway and how Sally's secret is safe with him. Tim runs off to put a stop to this, and he approaches Ronnie and Sally. Ronnie tells him to relax, so Tim punches him, accusing him of cutting his grass. Outraged, Sally explains that Ronnie had agreed to give them his complimentary Weathy County ticket that he won in the raffle. Oh, says Tim, and he scurries away. That's this week's
Punch.
Someone punching someone else in the face and getting away with it.
The punch of the week.
It's just so... How do we get these characters either out of a situation or into a situation, and using the kind of toxic male...
Masculinity.
The idea that Tim would punch Ronnie is ludicrous. Because Ronnie
and get away with it.
Because Ronnie would kill him.
Right. And Ronnie says that. He's like,
Right.
You're lucky this wasn't 10 years ago, or you'd be back in the hospital.
Right.
And nobody would blame him.
No,
Nobody would blame him. I mean, if Tim honestly thinks that because he can't get it up, Sally's getting it on with Ronnie, I can understand him being upset. But how on earth can he believe that's what's going on here?
Right.
When Sally very much wants to get it on with him.
She's certainly given him the impression that that's what she's looking for, right?
Right.
More than once. Going out of her way. So, it just feels like it's we need something to go into the break with.
Right. So punch somebody.
And I'd rather...
In the street.
I really wish that they came up with something else to go into the break with, because it's... I don't know, it's not funny.
No.
And it happens way too often.
And they try to make it funny later on, you know, in the social meds and stuff, the show does.
Right.
Because remember when they tried to do that with the whole Steve thing?
Oh, and with Abby punching Imran. That was supposed to be funny as well.
Right. And Steve punching Jacob was supposed to be funny. It's just not funny. It's not funny. Gail saying ecstasy was funny.
That was very funny. Ecstasy? It just makes it... The only thing that happens in the street is men punching each other.
Right. And then men using women to... Men using women's suffering to learn a lesson.
Obviously.
Those are the two things that happen on the street. And that's it.
At home, Sally tells Tim that he was out of control, as if she'd tell a stranger about his Boaby. Tim apologises and then tries to explain how this is even worse for him than losing his hair was. He's a laughingstock and there's nothing that he can do about it. Gadas! Coughs Sally.
Seriously.
And she sends him off to apologise. At the Rovers, Gail walks in and overhears Steve and Ronnie chatting about Tim and gets the wrong end of the stick, assuming that Tim has confided in his friends about his problems. She's happy he's taking this step and tells Steve and Ronnie that she's going to tell him so. They two haven't a clue what she's talking about.
Right, yes.
So later, Tim goes round to the Rovers to apologise to Ronnie. Ronnie allows Tim's toxic masculinity to go unreported this time. Furthermore, he even gives Tim the tickets after all, advising him to go home and make things right with his missus.
Yes.
So Gail bumps into Tim on his way out and congratulates him for speaking to his friends about his Boaby issues. A problem shared is a problem doubled, she says, but well done to you for talking about your embarrassing personal issues. Yes, says Tim. So Tim goes home, furious that Sally blabbed to Gail. She apologises, said that she needs someone to talk to. You've let me down, he says. This is my problem, this is my business, says Tim. And he storms upstairs, for a shite presumably. And that's how we end this week's episodes.
I've said this before, and I will say it again.
Right.
I'm getting a little tired of the storyline.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And for this to be kind of promoted to be story A this week.
Right.
Is... It feels like we're in a kind of a bit of a low at the moment in terms of
Storyline.
the story progression. The fact that we've got Britain's Got Talent week. Is that next week? This coming
May
week?
30th. So the week after, I think. I don't know. It's coming.
Yeah, May 30th is the week
Memorial
after
Day
next week.
weekend.
Right. Thank
For
you.
us.
Right. Why they don't pitch it as that, I have no idea. You know, we're always building up to a big week of drama and special effects and stunts and guns,
Right.
which is a culmination of the storylines that have been bubbling up. This week has been let's nudge little stories on a little bit, like the Abbey stuff,
Right.
but not too far, because we've got to keep all that stuff, all that good stuff for the Britain's Got Talent week. So to have this storyline of the Timpotence problem has been storyline A for an entire week.
And how many
Kind of
times?
smacks of that.
How many times is he going to almost go to the doctor and then decide not to at the last minute?
Says he's going to go to the doctor, has a conversation that if you squint, you can kind of
Right.
understand it as being something that's talking him out of it or making
Right.
him reconsider or realise how embarrassing it is.
Right.
And then he just goes back to
Right.
telling a lie about it again.
Yeah.
And then telling another lie about it again.
Right.
We're kind of going through the motions. We're stuck in a cycle here
Yes,
of
we are.
going to the hotel is just an al fresco version of Sally dressing up.
Right.
It's just another thing for it to go wrong.
Right.
To make matters worse. So we've been here before.
Right.
We've
And it
done
gives
this
us
before.
an opportunity for Sally to tell Gail that dressing up in a nurse's outfit is just not doing it anymore.
Yeah, a PVC nurse's outfit.
Right.
Got to get some rubber fetish in there as well,
It would
right?
have to be PVC because you could just wipe that clean.
Oof. Bleh. Yeah.
Yeah.
You knew that the doorbell cam was going to have a
Right, yeah.
pivotal plot point to
Of
play,
course
didn't
it
you?
was. Of course it was. Why introduce... It's Chekhov's
Chekhov's door cam.
door cam.
Right. Can you speak to people through those things?
Yes.
Can you?
Yes.
That surprised me.
That's kind of the point of them, is that you can say, you
Oh,
know,
of course, right.
just leave it there, you know. Or if somebody's trying to break in, you can say, hey, what are you doing? And scare them off.
Right. Oh, I'm calling the police, you.
Right, yeah. I see you. You with your hat and your sunglasses.
Your fake mustache.
And your UPS.
Oh, sorry, Mum.
Yeah, so
We're not in.
anyway. That's the week that was. What is your moment of the week?
So in addition to all this,
Right.
there was
Yeah.
also the scene, it was towards the start of Friday's episode of Gail and Eileen taking some flowers to mark the 5-year anniversary of the Manchester Arena bombing, where I think 23 people
Right.
lost their lives, showing off the bench that is dedicated to Martin Hett, who was a
Corrie
Corrie
superfan.
superfan, and someone who has had an influence on some of the stuff that I do. Martin, I think, was, if he wasn't the first person, he was certainly one of the people who made a YouTube video of Audrey's noises. Of the Audrey hums. So
Right.
he kind of pioneered, as far as I was concerned, the Audrey
Right.
video, which is what inspired me to make videos of my own of Sally saying the girls and Fred making noises and Sean doing his little spin and all those sort of things. So
Yeah.
he's memorialised after he lost his life at the Manchester Arena bombing on the
show.
on the plaque on the bench. So it was a very moving scene.
It was lovely to have Gail and Eileen be the ones to do it, you
Yeah.
know, because they kind of buried the hatchet temporarily, saying, you know, some things are more important, some things are bigger than us.
Right.
And I thought that was really lovely.
Yeah, and there's a sentiment that is expressed during that by Gail, and it's a sentiment that you hear, you know, going back as far as the Ibrox disaster, where people lost their lives at a football match, and Hillsborough, when people lost their lives at a football match, that they went out to do something really just ordinary and unremarkable, and they never came home. And
Right.
you know, so it's not like these people went off to war or whatever. You know, they went out for some entertainment. They went out for a night out. They never came home, and there's something just really stark about expressing that makes you really appreciate, you know, how lucky they are, but for the grace of God
Right.
go I, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, Gail mentioning the fact that, you know, even Lily really likes Ariana Grande, so there's this personal thing of, would you send your kids to a concert if you knew something like this is possible? And it really, you know, especially after the Buffalo massacre this week here in the States, where all of those people were just grocery shopping,
Right.
and were just mowed down by this person.
Right, it's the banality of it
Right.
sometimes, right?
You know, and somebody on Twitter said something about how, you know, I've been looking for the exits since Columbine, and you know, that's something you and I have talked about the fact that ever since not Columbine for me, but definitely since the Augusta, not Augusta, the movie theater
Colorado,
in
Aurora.
Colorado. You know, whenever I go to the movie theater, whenever I go to church, you know, we're always looking for the exits.
Oh yeah, I always look for an exit,
Yeah.
no matter where I go. If I'm going in anywhere
Yeah.
that I'm enclosed, it's how do I get out here if I need to?
Right. And where do I duck and
If
cover?
I can't get out, yeah.
Right. You know, and to live in a society where you kind of have to think about that sort of thing all the time.
Yeah, and I think Gail's point as well is that it could have been, you know, there's no reason why it happened 5 years ago.
Right.
It could have happened 5 days ago.
Exactly.
It could have been Lily. It could have been anyone. It
Right.
could have been any one of them. It could have been them going to the concert to pick people up. And,
Right.
So there's no telling, there's no planning, there's no reason for it. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it was just a really nice, just a scene. They didn't overplay it. They
Right.
didn't make it, a plot for the episode. It was just a scene where they just kind of very solemnly paid their respects.
Yes.
Doing it in a fictional setting, but doing it for the real people of Manchester who
lost
who
their
were
lives.
affected by
Yeah.
it and who never came home from the concert. It was kind of remarkable.
Absolutely.
So if you're about to ask me what my moment of the week was, it was that.
That was absolutely the moment of the week.
Moment of the week.
Our boring moment of the week.
I want to say Daniel's interview, but that wasn't actually boring.
and it was too good. But I enjoyed it too much.
Daniel and Ken prepping for his interview.
Daniel giving his sample answers and Ken
Ken.
going, yes.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Rubbing his nipples as he says it. Yes. Yeah, I think so. I think that's a...
Boring moment of the week.
All right, you need to go back to bed.
Holy shit, do I need to go back to bed?
This is the longest you've been up in over a week.
Longest I've been up and the most I've spoken since probably 2 weeks ago.
Oof.
This is
My poor darling.
so tiring. Because we've got through 2 weeks worth in just over an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So I think we've kind of flown through it at breakneck speed. Hopefully we can get back to our
Yeah.
normal tangents and...
And it goes without saying, y'all, get vaccinated. Get the booster because you are vaccinated and you've had the booster and
my
it
God.
still knocked you out. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if you hadn't been vaccinated?
I can't... My brain is not working properly at the moment. But...
You
if I've already said this, I apologise. But while I don't think I came close to dying from this, I can understand how people die from this.
Yeah.
Because if that had gone into my lungs, I think I would have been fucked. And I think it's the vaccination and the boosters that kind of kept it out of that.
Right.
But it never was really respiratory for me. It was fever and it was just the worst flu you've ever had in your life. And yeah. And the after effects of it are almost as bad.
Yeah. And it also must be said, thank you to everyone who has reached out and wished Gav and us well.
Yeah,
through
really
all of
appreciate
this.
it.
As I said in the beginning, this has been a very, very stressful time for the whole family. The kids and I, thank God, have not caught it.
Mm-hmm.
We've been very good and very careful. And quarantine works, y'all.
Right.
So
Yeah, I think it's just a nice little reminder of, the kind of community that goes around about Coronation Street, that goes around about our Twitter and our podcast
Yeah.
and just the wider Corrie community. It's just really nice to get so many messages
absolutely.
of get well soon and good health. It's really appreciated. And
Absolutely.
it seems to have worked. So
Yeah.
we're the Talk of the Street at gmail.com and we're at Corrie Podcast on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. You can shout me and Helen a coffee by heading to ko-fi.com. That's ko-fi.com/Talk of the Street. Check out the clicky section of voggle.co.uk for links to our merch store and YouTube channel. And if you're so inclined, please leave a rating and a review on the iTunes or your podcast provider of choice. Thanks for making it to the end of another episode. And we will be back hopefully next week with more
Talk of the Street.
The Talk of the Street.
Bye.
Cheerio!